All right, welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio, Nemo Video. This is an exciting show. This is going to be something that everyone's going to listen to and get completely inspired by and pumped up by, because I have the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Stelzner with me. How are you?
John, I'm doing great, man. Staying contained in my house just like you are.
In your little box. We were just talking about this off air. But Michael, for the three people that don't know, but this is what's going to be so fun about today's episode, is how you became Michael Stelzner, quote unquote. Mike is the founder and CEO of Social Media Examiner. He's the creator of Social Media Marketing World, which is the largest conference of its kind on the planet in San Diego. I've been to it. I've spoken at it. It is a kind of game-changing event. And Michael is now got a new program coming out, a new course that is going to be fascinating to talk about, that people are going to be really interested in. And it really dovetails into how anyone can really replicate and do what Michael Stelzner has done with his career. So let's go back in time to when you were a nobody. So
Sure.
let's start back, because people are going to think, Michael, it's so easy to look at people on their social media feed and say, well, you just descended from on high and you always had it all together and it was
Yeah.
just easy for you. And you had this big company that everyone's begging to be on your show. And how did it start? And then that's going to, I know, lead us into the new program, the new course.
Well, it's been a multiple decade journey. I mean, I started in the mid 90s, got wrongfully terminated from a corporate job because the CEO thought I saw him doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. And I went off and started my own agency. And in the beginning, I was basically, I became what I called a creative services agency. So we did everything from website design to logo design to annual reports. And we were mostly servicing the high tech industry. So we were helping a lot of startups and even bigger companies like Hewlett Packard and others with a lot of their marketing materials. And then around the early 2000s, we had the Y2K problem, and then, we had 9/11, and we had a lot of change in the industry. And I decided to pivot from just a nobody who nobody knew who I was, that provided a lot of really valuable services, to branding myself as a writer. And I leaned in heavily in copywriting, and I became known as a writer of white papers. Do you know what white papers are, John?
I used to do them, man. And you were the
Yeah.
guy, like I
Yeah.
mean, are the guy, but like you were known as the white paper writing guy. So explain for those that don't know what
Yeah.
they are and
So,
how you decided to niche into that.
so mostly used in business to business. It's the equivalent consumer thing as an ebook. And the idea was businesses that sold really complex or expensive products that had a long sales cycle would use these to generate leads or leave them behind with a prospect. And it's kind of an article meets a brochure. It's informative and it's persuasive, right? So I helped develop that industry. I wrote ultimately a book called Writing White Papers, which I sold 10,000 copies of. But before I did that, I really started a blog back in the early days when blogs were just starting to become popular. And I started blogging about copywriting and persuasive language. And I started attracting a tribe of fellow competitors towards me. Started a newsletter, grew 20,000 subscribers on that newsletter, published the book, published a resource called whitepapersource.com, which kind of became a hub where people would come learn about marketing and how to create and write white papers. And it had forums, which are the precursors to Facebook groups. And, I was set for the rest of my life as a writer. And I was working with some of the biggest names you could possibly imagine: Hewlett Packard, Dow Jones, Motorola, FedEx, just huge companies were lining up, paying me top dollar, and I was set for life.
And then this changes, though, because you obviously, and you talk about this in kind of your journey, is you obviously had hit this peak.
Right.
You went all in, you niched in, you had people lining up, you kept raising your rates, people kept paying. And so what leads you to decide, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to change, and I'm going to scratch this itch, this little thing called social media? Well, take us through that.
Yeah. So I had been doing this writing thing for about 10 years, and maybe 8 to 10 years. And I was enjoying it. It was great to see a lot of the work that I was helping others do. And I had helped a lot of, probably thousands of journalists who are out of work kind of pivot into the writing space,
Hmm.
and I kind of helped develop that industry. And it was around 2008, 2009, I started noticing that Facebook was becoming a thing and LinkedIn was kind of a thing. And I'm like, what? And then there's Twitter, right? And it's like, what the heck is going on? So I started writing about it in my newsletter and for other big publications like Marketing Profs and Copy Blogger. And turns out the stuff I was writing about was some of the best performing articles on those publications. And I was like, I'm clearly onto something here. So then I decided to try to see whether I could start a multi-author blog. And that's what they called them back in the day, right? Like not just my own blog, but blogs that had other writers. Secured the domain socialmediaexaminer.com. Immediately thought I was going to get sued by the San Francisco Examiner. So I trademarked the name. And then I reached out to a lot of my friends that I had helped in the writing world, and I leveraged those relationships that I'd already built. A lot of those journalists who have gone on to be very successful, were willing to write for me for nothing. And we kind of started a movement, and it was a lot less about me. My name wasn't associated with it at all. It was more about just helping businesses and marketers figure out this hot new thing called social. And I got to tell you, John, that took off in a way that I'd never experienced before. I got to 10,000 email subscribers in mere months, where it took me years before with white papers. And I realized, holy crap, I'm onto something. So this time around, I decided to not focus on me, but just focus on helping to develop other people, to rise up those other people to be kind of the John Nemos, of the world, if you will. And I started discovering and nurturing talent, and helping them and advising them. And a lot of people that are really well known today in the world of social are my friends. And I've privately mentored, advised, or coached those people. And it's just been kind of a fun ride. And fascinatingly enough, about 3 or 4 years into the journey, I decided to write my second book. And some of the criticism I got from people was, well, nobody knows who you are. Because at that point, it wasn't about me. It was about everyone else. And I'm like, well, trust me, I think I can move some books. Because by that point, I had built a email list of over 100, over 200,000. Eventually, that grew to 650,000 email subscribers. So my second book was called Launch. That took off. Then I started 7.5 years ago, a podcast called Social Media Marketing. And that was, by the way, all these things were just experiments, just to be clear. So I had given socialmediaexaminer.com maybe a 3-year run. We're over 10 years in now.
Wow.
I'd given the podcast 4 months because my conference is called Social Media Marketing World. The podcast is called Social Media Marketing. So if you're smart, you can connect the dots. It was a promotional technique. And the people I interviewed on the podcast just so happened to be the people that were speaking at Social Media Marketing World. And lo and behold, I didn't realize how big the podcast would become. I mean, now I've had, 15 million downloads on that show. And I get like, 400,000 or 500,000 downloads a month on the podcast today. And it's become one of the top 3 in the world for marketing. And it's just like crazy ride, man. And, I just started asking myself, how has this happened to me?
And I want to step back because you made an interesting choice. You built a brand, but it wasn't built as Michael Stelzner Inc., right? It was Social Media Examiner, Social Media. What was the conscious decision behind that? Why didn't you want to build your name? I mean, I'm just curious because some people go that way that you did. Some people say, no, it's all about my name. What was your kind of rationale for that?
Well, first of all, I think that anyone who's listening right now, either option is legit, right? It's just a question of what you want. In my first case, I wanted to be known because I was selling me as a writer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So my product was me, and I had an agency and it was all about me. In the second case, I was building a media company and we were going to figure out some products down the road. So eventually those products became the conference, online summits, all that other stuff. So I had already kind of experienced the limits of what I can do as a single individual. And I knew that when I had my agency, everybody only wanted to work with me. So it didn't scale beyond me, but still it was huge. Don't get me wrong. But I wanted something that could be bigger than me so that if I ever wanted to, I could use it as a foundation to spin off lots of different companies, different products, and they wouldn't be completely hinged on me, Michael Stelzner.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. And it makes such sense. And I want to step back 1 second because some people don't realize you're kind of like the star maker of social media, like Amy Porterfield, John Lee Dumas, Ray Edwards, Pat Flynn. Like literally
Mari
name
Smith,
after,
yeah.
yeah, like Mari Smith. I'm looking at like you, not that they wouldn't have been successful without your help, but these are people who the testimonials are all over. Like Mike was the one that helped me kind of start and launched me. And so you've obviously, gotten into helping other people and have built such a great model of people really that reciprocity has kicked in where now that they are big stars, they are still coming back, bringing people to you. And it's everyone now wants to be part of this movement. What was so interesting, Mike, I remember when I first came across you, I could not turn on YouTube or I could not look up a conference for several years where I didn't see you with a film crew and your microphone interviewing people. And I think that was, people don't want to talk about the grind and the hustle, but for a couple of years you were everywhere, weren't you? And you were interviewing people. Tell me about that strategy, that approach.
Yeah. Well, when I started Social Media Examiner, I thought to myself, I want to be like a media company. And what do media companies do? They go out and they talk to people. So the idea was I was 3 days old and I went to a conference called Blog World, which isn't around anymore. And I was interviewing people like Chris Brogan and Scott Monty, who used to work for Ford Motor Company, and all these other people. And then a few days later, I went to another conference called Marketing Profs, and there I met Jay Bear and all these other people and interviewed them and got to know all these guys when they were just pretty much beginning, and what I brought to the table was I knew how to interview people because I was a writer. So I was interviewing these people professionally and they'd never experienced anything like that before. And then I was publishing these videos and they were like, wow, these are really good. So, and they started putting them up on their website and they started talking about them. So I knew strategically that if I could provide value to other people, and John, this is the same thing today in podcasting, right? You know this, when you bring someone who's a guest on your show and you do a great job and they had a good experience, then that's the development of a relationship. So that's what I did with a lot of these people. And I'm still friends with almost all of them to this day because it was less about me and it was more about them.
And by the way, Michael was doing this like over a decade ago. This is commonplace now for everyone
Right.
watching and listening. Like, oh, we're featuring people. And you were doing it at a time you were very ahead of the curve, and you got in early, and you created and you do create these win-win relationships where people then want to bring the reciprocity. Now, what's exciting for everyone listening and watching, and let's pivot into this part, is anyone can do this. Anyone can do
Absolutely.
this. And this is what is so exciting and why I reached out to you, Mike, was you have bottled up how you did what you did and put together kind of what you call this master plan to become a recognized expert in any industry, even if you're a nobody right now. So can you
Right.
kind of explain what this is and walk us through the framework of it?
Yes, I call it the dreams method. And it's really ideal for anyone who ideally is self-employed and is kind of sick of paying Facebook and Google and wants to instead create content and a loyal following that will evangelize them, which is really important, right? Because not everybody's ready to buy, but you want people out there evangelizing you in the same way we talked about just a few minutes ago. And also people who will purchase whatever it is you have to sell. And when you kind of follow this model, which I call the dreams method, and it's a very systematized method, it's kind of part science and part art, which I think a lot of people will respect. And it's highly systematized. Anyone can accomplish this if they're willing to do the work. You want me to go through the kind of the method?
Yeah, I've got it pulled up. I'm reading it right now. I mean, of course, because you're Stelzner, it's got great design and everything, but also each letter in Dreams stands for a different part of the framework. So walk us through it. I think it's brilliant.
Step one is the depict phase. And this is kind of like creating a visual storyboard in your mind about where you want to go and what you want to achieve. So if you think about a storyboard for Star Wars, right, it's just a drawing of what the movie's going to be like. So this is really where you think about like, why do you want to be well known and what are your big dreams? And also an important part of it, what could be the drama that shows up in your movie? What could be the roadblocks that could hold you back? And it's important to kind of imagine that ahead of time so that when it happens, you're prepared for it. Things like imposter syndrome, right, is one of the big ones.
Oh, yes.
And many others, right? And then also, if you could overcome these things or navigate around them, what could you achieve? How could this transform your life and your business? So that's kind of like step one, which, you know, makes a lot of sense to people, getting to know their why and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, you move into the R. And by the way, we can stop me wherever you want to stop because I can go
No,
as
this
deep
is
as you want to go.
brilliant.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to, while you're talking, I'm going to share my screen because I've got it pulled up.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Take me through. So
Yep.
Let me go down here to kind of show people quickly. This is it. Dreams, depict, research, experiment, augment, make, and sync. So I love the fact that you referenced the greatest of all time, which is Star Wars. There it is, right?
Yes.
Got that. So, and I love too on the dream phase, you really tapped into mindset and you tapped into, you have to start there and start dealing with imposter syndrome, which is brilliant, Mike, because that's, if you don't get that correct, nothing else is going to matter in this framework. So let's
well,
move into
and
step
for what it's worth, it's also worth mentioning that there's a lot of other roadblocks that can hold people back. For example, there's too many competitors, or no one will listen to me, or I can't handle the critics, right? And these are all the things that I teach in my methodology, how to overcome these things by reframing them as liberating truths. So yeah, it's part mindset, a lot of other things. So once you get past that, this is the part everybody skips, which is the R in dreams is the research phase. And this is where you spend some time thinking about two different important things. Who do you want to reach? And then who are your competitors? And when we think about who do you want to reach, this is not like just people like me. This is more like, okay, who really do you want to get in front of? And what are their real struggles and frustrations? And this is important because when you understand who your audience is and what their biggest struggles are, you can begin to understand the language that they use. You can begin to understand where their head is at. And then down the road, when you talk to them, you can use that language and you can try to address those struggles, which sends a signal to them that you are for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're speaking my language. It's like he knows me, right?
Yeah. And that's so critical. And then of course, the competitor side of it is also very important because so many people don't think of competitors the way I think of competitors. You want to actually identify the strengths of your competitors and you want to study what is it about them that makes them super strong. For example, let's take Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Yeah. Some might say he's an alternative method to me. What makes Gary super strong is that guy is out there speaking nonstop. He talks endlessly to people. He interacts with people all the time. He is on the cutting edge of the pulse of the world that I'm in a way that no one else does. That is his secret weapon, right? Who does he serve? Well, I think he services people that are very aspirational, who desire to be something greater than what they are, right? And then when you do that with all of the people that are your competitors, you begin to look at them in a different light because you begin to understand. And what mediums are they popular on? Like Gary is really good on audio and video, but he's not a writer. Right. And then when you begin to think, all right, how could I be different? Well, it turns out I'm a writer first. Okay.
Yes.
And when I do speak, I'm a little different kind of a talker than he is, right? I'm a little more methodical, a little less swing from the hip.
You're not cussing every third word, Stelzner. That's one. Yeah.
Right.
But this is brilliant because you're not threatened by Gary. You're not afraid of him. You're not dissing him. You're seeing what's working for him. What are things I can learn from? But how can I also differentiate myself? Because no two people are the same.
Yeah. And what channels does he dominate on? And maybe I should be on the ones he doesn't dominate on. Right. Or maybe I should be on the ones he dominates on because it's a big market and there's room for me too. Right. So that's the research. That's the research phase. And in the research phase, you're also talking to prospects. So you're actually getting on the phone and talking to like people that are actually your ideal audience, and you're interviewing them and you're asking them a lot of questions to get at their struggles. You might be doing actual research study and analyzing them. And then, you know, in that, when you're doing all that, it's just powerful stuff that comes out of it. And by the way, this is a stair step. So every step you're moving up and building on what was the prior step. So once you get your research done, you move into the experiment phase. Again, something no one else does. So many people, just to be clear, go from dream to make, and then they fail.
Yeah.
They dream that they want something, they start making stuff, it doesn't work, and then they quit. They don't understand why. So when you've done the research, you've kind of gotten insight and knowledge, and now you're going to put it to the test in the experiment phase. So in the experiment phase is where you want to make your mistakes. If you think about a lab experiment, you're running all sorts of experiments, expecting some are going to fail, and you want to fail quick so you can know what works and what doesn't work. And in this phase of your journey, you want to be running tests that take 24 hours, simple tests. And the idea is you're going to take the language and some of the struggles from your research, and you're going to test them out on the social platforms. And what you're looking for is like, all right, is my message finding the right audience? Am I communicating in the right medium? Am I using the right language, right? And all this stuff is in the experimental phase. And you come out of this with a lot of your assumptions destroyed because you realize your assumptions were wrong, or you have to go back to your research and say, hey, I was using my language, not their language, right? But what comes out of this is super clarity. Now you're smiling a lot. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm like, where were you 2 years ago with this when I built an entire online course for probably 6 months, not LinkedIn Rich, is a different one, and it completely fell flat? Because I didn't do this. I didn't test. I thought I knew what they wanted, Mike. I thought I had it all figured out.
This is the reason why so many people it doesn't succeed, right?
I'm beating myself up because I'm like, oh man, this would have saved a lot of pain. But it's so enlightening to see this as a process, to see why you have a method.
It makes sense, doesn't it, too?
It does. It's like, oh, Nemo, you idiot. Okay. Now moving forward, I can get your course and I'll be fine. Okay, but I love this. Yeah, I love it.
So D is depict, R is research, E in dreams is experiment, A is augment. So with the augment, I want you to think about the word augment. It means to improve or to make better. Okay, so if you think of augmented reality, if you've ever played any kind of augmented reality, or you have a pop-up display in your car, it's like showing something on top of what already exists. It's making it better. It's enhancing it, right? So in the augment phase, we're taking the successful experiments and we are developing them deeper. And it's in this phase that we're coming up with talking points. What are certain phrases or words or descriptors? Who do you serve? What do you solve? You know, what's your solution, simply stated? This is the stuff that a lot of people, they can't articulate it well. And the reason they can't articulate it well is because they haven't done all these prior steps. And what's I think is most exciting is in this phase, you can also develop your own method. Just like I have the dreams method, Gary Vee has the jab, 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 right hook, right? Which is give, 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 and then ask.
Yep.
You can develop your very own method. And John, I don't know about you, but whenever I hear someone describe a methodology or an acronym that makes logical sense, I automatically impute extra knowledge to them. Do you?
Yeah. Because you assume it, you know what it does, Mike, is you believe that you can do it too. Because that's such a core part of sales and marketing and getting people to hand over their money is, well, it worked for Mike, but he's Mike Stelzner. Certainly he's different or more unique or better than me. But when you show them a methodology and you do it in this way, Mike, they're like, well, I can do this, right? Like, and it makes sense. And yeah, you get extra credibility. I love this.
And if you think about, you know, some of the best authors that are out there, they have their methods. Typically this is not something most people do, right? Like they have the more advanced kind of experts have come up with a proprietary method. And I'm going to help people figure out what theirs is, which I think is just kind of an extra cherry on top of the ice cream, if you will. Now, another part of this is really stories. Stories is a key part of it. You know, we started this interview with a story. You know, and I know that when you can tell a story that people can connect with, that it's a powerful, powerful thing. And the key thing is to either tell your own stories or to come up with stories from other people that support whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. And people lose track of time when they hear a good story.
Yeah.
People learn better through story than they do even through methodology. And the key is to know how to tell a good story, know how to do it in a way that doesn't come across as too self-promotional. And that's really kind of a key part of it. And then the last part of the augment phase is really to think about strategy. On Strength Finders, strategy is my number one. And you could probably tell I'm a strategic guy just based on the story that I mentioned earlier. And in this part of your story, you want to really think about, like, what's my strategy going to be with the development of content? How am I going to make sure that I'm showing up and I'm out there? And you also want to think about, what's my social strategy? Like, where am I going to be on the platforms? Because, content isn't always social, right? So content can include podcasting, which is not social. Content can include blogging, which is not social. So these are the things that I kind of help people figure out a strategy at this point. And then when we have all of this, we move into the make phase, right?
Okay, but wait. I got to tell one story about Michael Stelzner that crystallizes how exciting this process is. In my mind's eye, the story I have of you and how you became you is, I remember opening on my laptop, 2006, 7, 8. You were a guy in the crowd at a show talking to the Chris Brogan, Scott Monty. I saw you a couple weeks ago or a month ago. You were the guy on stage in front of thousands of people hanging on every word. Like, that's your story, and that's this process. And so that's something I never will forget. Like, oh, that's how Stelzner did it, right? Okay, so all that said, let's move into the make phase.
Well, let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
I think that one of the big things a lot of people want when they think about why they want to be well known is they want to be picked to be up on those stages.
Right.
They want to be asked to be on those podcasts, right? They want to get those book deals presented to them. And if we're intellectually honest, podcasters want someone who's already figured this stuff out.
Right.
Event people want people who've already got some level of success, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing with book authors. They want people who develop some sort of an audience. So that's a key. This isn't just about becoming well known. This is about having a solid strategy that can help you build a business, right? And it can help you achieve whatever those things are that you want. And I think that was a worthy diversion. So we talked about augment. The second to the last is the make, right? And it's at this point where we have to ask ourselves, as people who want to be well known, like, what is our gift set? You have some people that have the gift of gab, like you and me, John. And that's where we might want to consider podcasting. You have other people who are amazing writers, and the written word is their craft. You have some people who are really good on video and like the idea of editing and to create the perfect video. And then you have people that are performers who just need a crowd, right? So knowing what your gift set is really, really important, because you want to lean into that, right? If you're not comfortable on camera, you don't have to do video.
Yeah.
You have a face made for radio. Podcasting is your friend. Right?
What are you trying to say here?
Anyways, the key to the whole thing is, in the make phase, you're going to begin making content, which allows you to make a name for yourself. You're going to make sure you're showing up in a regular cadence, and you have a junction road at this point in your journey, which is, I could either go the easy path or the hard path. The easy path is to leverage the media that already exists. So in podcasting, rather than start your own podcast, why don't you try to be a guest on other people's podcasts? That's easy. Instead of trying to start your own conference, try to be a speaker. Try to be a speaker at other people's conferences. Instead of trying to start your own blog, maybe you should consider blogging on someone else's blog. Did you know there's a lot of places out there that take written submissions? Video, you can try to be a guest on live shows. There's so many opportunities that allow you to leverage other people's mediums, like I'm doing right now with John, that don't require you to have any platform that you own on your own at all. And that's what I think you should do in the beginning, because that's the fastest route. I mean, you could go the route that I think you went, John, which was starting a podcast, but I don't know. Did you go that route or did you not go that route?
You know how I built my whole platform was, I kind of did similar to what you did. I went to people like Chris Brogan and John Lee Dumas and said, I'm a nobody, but I want to, basically my goal was to leverage their platform, but I did it by bringing value. I said, I know you don't know me. I would love permission from you just to try to rewrite your LinkedIn profile for free. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't take any time. If you love it, you can use it. Great. We can build a relationship. If you don't, no problem. What happened, Mike, was I did a good job. I provided value. Then they would let me onto their platform to come on Entrepreneur on Fire, or to be featured in Chris's email, or to be on Ray Edwards' podcast, which is where you heard me, to then share their platforms. And then I had kind of underneath that my stuff, right? I had my own show, my own book, whatever, to funnel people to. But you're absolutely right. It's much faster and better for you to demonstrate expertise and share on a known platform than it is to try to build it from the ground up and never ask for help. And I think, honestly, thinking about you, Mike, that's like one of your secrets is everybody and everybody likes you. You're like a very eminently likable guy. And you're also very strategic. You know what I mean? You don't come across as kind of this, I'm thinking and plotting all the time, because you're not. You're just easygoing, friendly guy. But I think underneath that is your strategy, where every relationship, okay, this person can connect me to this, and this can connect to that, but I've got to get this person a win. So if I connect them there, then the win for them is this. And you see that play out in how you've built this kind of empire, frankly, that people are like killing each other trying to get on your podcast, trying to speak at your event. And that's really a culmination of how you started by interviewing Chris Brogan and he promoting you on his platform, right?
Kind of. My philosophy has always been to think of the audience that I want to build first and less about anything else. So my strategy, and you can kind of tell from what we've been talking about so far, and we still have one more phase, which we're going to get to, which is definitely relevant to the story you shared about your experience.
Yeah.
But the philosophy that I believe is that if you truly know who you're trying to reach, and you can figure out a way to bring value to them in any way possible, and especially if that value does not reside in your mind, but in somebody else's mind, then you're doing a service to your audience, first and foremost, no matter what, by bringing the best possible people to them. The side effect, the benefit of doing that is a triple win, right? It's a win for you, it's a win for your audience, and it's also a win for the person you're bringing to your audience. That is a perfect bridge into the sync phase, okay, which is the last phase of the process. The sync phase is where you begin to work collaboratively with other people, which is what you were doing, John, right? Mm-hmm. You were figuring out a way to build relationships in what you were doing. You approach this as like, I'm going to provide some great value to someone that's going to build a relationship that may or may not yield fruit down the road, right? Correct. So that's no different than what I expound. The only difference is that I believe that you should provide that value in a public kind of way instead of in a private kind of way, right? So you do that through, speaking, writing, video, and podcasts instead of just doing great favors to other people, right? So that's the only variance between these two. But the outcome is the same, right? Because the hypothesis here is hopefully you've begun to build some reputation with your content. And when that happens, you can begin collaborating with other people because they'll want to collaborate with you because they will very easily be able to see your work and your fingerprint. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They will know that what John Nemo stands for because there is plenty of work out there for them to consume. In some regards, they'll come to you wanting to work with you. And the key thing here is if we go all the way back to the beginning in the research phase where we were identifying those competitors and what their strengths are, it turns out some of those people, they're going to turn into your friend and they're going to be your ally and they're going to help you collaboratively move the entire industry bigger, which is the way this thing all loops back because it's all about respecting your competition because in the beginning, they might be your idol or they might be your threat, but eventually they're going to be your friend. Yeah. And the reason they're going to be your friend is because they're going to respect you for the work that you do. And if you can figure out a way to leverage and collaborate with them in a way that's really focused on the audience and less about the output of the relationship, then it's just like a win all around. So that's kind of the framework at a macro level. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. And I witnessed this, what you're talking about with competitors firsthand at your event, and at Social Media Marketing World. And it was being on LinkedIn panels and being like, wow, like these guys are very generous. And it kind of, we all took a step back and it's like, there's plenty of business for everyone in the room. Right.
Right.
And it's really that idea of we can all move this forward and we can all help each other. And it's been eye-opening to me to watch. And I think kind of reflecting now that I've had you kind of give us a masterclass on the framework, first of all, we all need to buy the course, which we'll get to in a second, but it just makes so much sense. And I think that's what's exciting is I want people watching and listening to this to get inspired. Like this isn't, like Mike said, this isn't some, there's hard work involved. Yes, but it's not rocket science or so difficult that you can't do it. And I think that's what people should be inspired by is when you started this, Mike, it was much harder. I think the tools, the tech was much different.
I think it's easier now.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
yeah, I think it's way easier now because like we've got ways to accelerate things we didn't have back then. You're absolutely right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like some could look at what I've done and say, well, I was an early mover. No, duh. He was there first. But I would say, well, how come no one else has survived?
That's true.
There's no one else who's survived. Right. I mean, like this is the key, right? Like I am constantly following this model. And as a result, I'm still relevant over 10 years later, right? Where so many people are gone. They're just not there anymore. Okay. And it's because the honest truth is a lot of people in the early days of anything get kind of famous on accident. They happen to be in the right place at the right time. They're riding the wind of the trend. And then all of a sudden it stops working. They don't know what to do and they're gone. They have no strategy at all. And if, strategy will always win in the end of the day because you'll know why you're there. You'll know if it's working, and that's going to be what's going to allow you to be successful.
And it will enable you, to pivot so that you're not just a one-trick pony. I mean, you're not just white papers guy. Right?
Pivot or dig in. I mean, look, what we offered when we started Social Media Examiner, what we offer today are completely different.
Yes.
Because we know our audience and we know their changing needs. And that's the key, right? Like if you can grow the audience and you can stay in sync, if you will, with what their needs are, then you can constantly be one step ahead of everyone else because you will be able to come out with new products and services that meet their needs.
I will say that's one thing I really admire about what you guys do. You're constantly you're constantly surveying your members, and then you're constantly telling us as people who come to present to your audiences online, or this is what they want. We know our people, we know our tribe, and it's changed over the years. And it's intriguing to me. You've really never gotten away from that kind of core tenet of being successful is I got to listen to what people want and then create the products and solutions instead of force feeding them what I think they need. And I think this framework helps you do that and do it over and over and over again. So let's look through. I mean, tell me, this is coming out. It's a 6-module online course, but are you teaching it live or how does this work?
Yeah. So if people go to socialmediaexaminer.com/course, they will see the course, and it closes on May 1st. That's important to let everybody know.
Yes, there is a deadline. Okay.
The way it's structured is I'm going to be releasing a module a week for 6 weeks. Each module has many lessons inside of it. So for example, the first module, which is the Depict module, has 5 lessons inside of it. Every lesson is includes a video and a very comprehensive worksheet for people to do. And then at the end of each week, we have a live Q&A with me. So at the end of every week for like 90 minutes, we come together and we answer questions. We also have a Facebook group as well, where we're going to be answering questions all the time. And the goal is to try to get through as much of the course as you can in the first 6 weeks. But once you're in forever. So the idea is if we release a future version of this course and it improves, you still got it. If you're in the Facebook group, you're still in. So the idea here is that you're in and you're in for good. And I, being a writer, can tell you this is some of my best work. I know that this is crafted in a way that any busy entrepreneur can consume it. You do not have to sit through hours and hours of video with people ranting and being non-articulate. That is not my style. Okay.
No, it is not.
This is actual work that you will do. And I walk everybody through everything. I give you the scripts. If you're going to be emailing people, I give you the survey data. If you're going to survey people, how to do it. I literally walk you through every step of the process and connect all the dots so that you can accomplish this.
God, it looks incredible. So I will link up to this, and then you can see you've got payment options right here to sign up. You've got a no risk sample it guarantee. Wow, that's amazing. And obviously it really is an incredible opportunity. All the Q&A, man, of course you've got all the details here, but I really think what I love about this is it's a very kind of clear and proven path. That's what I like about this, Mike, is it's not something like you just kind of came up with this as an idea, but you've literally built a platform, one of the top rated podcasts on the planet, the biggest, marketing conference on the planet of its type. You've got one of the most viewed and sought after blogs, Social Media Examiner on the planet. Like, this is all built from this framework. And so I think that should be exciting and enticing to people, because not only is it inspirational hearing Mike's journey, but it's kind of a system that has proven itself, correct?
Yeah. And this is really the first course I've ever taught. So this is the first time I've ever publicly decided that I'm going to reveal this. And, even if you're not sure that you could ever afford a course, just go and look at the sales page, because it actually is written like a really detailed resource. You could print it out and not take the course and at least try on your own route, if you will. It also has a pretty cool little video embedded in there where I reveal the dreams methodology in I think a 10-minute video. But yeah, this is definitely something you should consider only if you believe that if you became more well-known in your industry, it could help your business. If you believe that it could return an ROI because you won't have to try as hard to sell your products and services, you'll have that loyal following that wants whatever it is you have to sell, and you'll have people that will evangelize for you if that's something that's super valuable. Or if you're sick of looking at other people that you're way smarter than, and they're the ones on the podcast and they're the ones that are on the stage, and you're just frustrated because you don't understand why, well, you can put all that to bed.
Yeah.
That's my thinking.
Yeah. Don't get jealous. Join them. Right. And I mean,
join them, or even become bigger than them, because look, the truth of the matter is I was a nobody when I started Social Media Examiner. Nobody knew who I was. I was one of these, just a silly guy walking around with a microphone. But
you had a cool logo and you had a nice mic cover.
Yeah.
I remember.
Everybody starts somewhere, and it's just a question of what you want to achieve.
Yeah. I think this is a great opportunity, and it's something that, like you said, I have always been curious for years of how you did it. And I always kind of looked outside looking in, like, I think I kind of know some of how Stelzner did this. And then being at your events and seeing you behind the scenes, more of it comes together. And I remember you telling me, hey, you're going to love what I have coming out. And you started telling me, and I'm like, whoa, now that it's out there, it's like, ooh, this is exactly, I love the fact that you took the time to put this out as a blueprint, as something that anyone can take and run with and use. So I cannot be more excited. Before we finish, for everybody listening, watching, where do we send them again? What's the best place to find this before the doors close?
Socialmediaexaminer.com/course. And I will tell you, this is the best work that I've ever done. I know everybody seems to say that, but I can tell you this is not, this pandemic has forced me to be stuck and do just this course. And I don't have workouts. I don't have commutes to work. So I've been spending literally months doing nothing but this course. And this is absolutely phenomenal. And, obviously you have to see it to believe it, but I think you're going to love it if it's right for you. And John, I just want to say thanks, man. I don't like selling myself normally, to be honest with you. And I know it sounds like I'm a good sales guy, but I just hate doing it,
Well, I will say, to your point, as we walked through the screen share I was doing was the sales page. That's a course in and of itself.
Right.
You're absolutely right in that there's enough on there with the framework and the videos. You could get results just from that. And I can't ever think of a time I've looked at a quote unquote sales page and actually been like, it was more educational than it was sales. Yes, I see the framework and I see the benefits, but it's very much doing kind of what you're known for, which is it's demonstrating the expertise instead of claiming it. And it's
Right.
going, these are the steps. This is why it works. This is how it works. This is what you're going to get. So it's even if you don't want to buy the course, go look at the sales page and learn from that. Like I got to redo my sales pages now, man. It's brilliant. It was brilliant. Michael Stelzner, thank you so much for coming on. I want everyone to go to socialmediaexaminer.com/course to get this before the doors close on May 1st. I will link up to it everywhere else. Again, thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you.